On the morning of 13 March 1996, Dunblane Primary School in the small Scottish town of Dunblane, near Stirling, was a place of ordinary beginnings. Assembly had run a little late. The Primary 1 class, 28 5 and 6-year-olds, lined up with their teacher, Gwen Mayer, for the first PE lesson of the day in the school gymnasium. Within minutes, the ordinary became the unimaginable. Thomas Hamilton, a 43-year-old local man, walked into that gymnasium carrying 4 legally held handguns and hundreds of rounds of ammunition. In roughly 3 to 4 minutes, he fired 105 shots from a 9mm Browning pistol. He killed 16 children and their teacher. One more child died on the way to hospital. 15 others, children and adults, were wounded. Then he turned a revolver on himself. It remains the deadliest mass shooting in British history. The morning of 13 March 1996. Around 8:15 a.m., a neighbor saw Hamilton scraping ice from the windscreen of his white van outside his home at 7 Kent Road, Stirling. He drove the short distance north to Dunblane. He parked near the school, cut telephone wires at a nearby pole affecting surrounding homes rather than the school itself, put on ear defenders, and entered the school grounds carrying 2 canvas bags and 4 holstered handguns, 2 9mm Browning self-loading pistols, and 2 .357 Smith & Wesson revolvers, together with 743 rounds of ammunition. After assembly finished at approximately 9:30 a.m., the Primary 1 class moved to the gym. With them were PE teacher Eileen Harold and supervisory assistant Mary Blake. Gwen Mayer planned only a brief stay before another commitment. Hamilton entered through a side door. He fired 2 shots into the assembly hall stage and more into a toilet area, then walked into the gymnasium. He first shot Eileen Harold in the arms and chest. She and several children managed to reach a side store cupboard. Gwen Mayer was shot and killed almost immediately. Mary Blake was also hit but continued trying to shepherd children to safety. Hamilton moved through the gym, firing rapidly and at close range. He reloaded multiple times. In total, he fired 105 rounds from 1 Browning and then used one of the revolvers to kill himself. The entire attack inside the gym lasted only a few minutes. 16 people lay dead in the gymnasium. A 16th child, Mary Isabel Macbeth, died en route to Stirling Royal Infirmary. Head teacher Ron Taylor was among the first adults to reach the scene. The first emergency call went out around 9:41 a.m. Police arrived within minutes. Ambulances followed. The victims, teacher Gwen Mayer, 45, children all aged 5 or 6, 15 others were injured, including teachers Eileen Harold and Mary Blake, and several children who survived with serious wounds. The perpetrator, Thomas Hamilton. Thomas Watt Hamilton was born in Glasgow on 10 May 1952. His parents separated when he was a baby. He was raised by his maternal grandparents, who legally adopted him and led him to believe for many years that his mother was his older sister. The family later moved to Stirling. In 1973, he became an assistant scout leader. His warrant was withdrawn in 1974 after complaints about the way he ran camps. From the late 1970s onward, he organized a series of boys' clubs, often on school premises across central Scotland. Parents and local authorities repeatedly raised concerns about his insistence that boys wear brief swimming trunks he supplied and about photographs he took of them performing exercises. Police investigated summer camps and residential courses in the late 1980s and early 1990s. No prosecution followed. Hamilton developed a deep, lasting resentment toward the Scout Association, local authorities, police, and parents he believed had ruined his reputation and his clubs. He wrote numerous letters of complaint. In the months before the attack, his clubs were in decline. He faced financial difficulties, and his interest in firearms intensified. He held a firearms certificate, first granted in 1977, and regularly practiced at clubs. The Cullen inquiry later concluded that Hamilton was not suffering from mental illness in the clinical sense, but displayed a paranoid personality with a strong desire for control. His firearms became the focus of his fantasies. The inquiry found the extreme violence he used would not have been predictable. Immediate aftermath and the Cullen inquiry. The town and the nation were stunned. Flowers and tributes accumulated outside the school. The gymnasium was later demolished and a memorial garden created on the site. A public inquiry, chaired by Lord Cullen, was established. Its report, published in October 1996, examined the events of the day, Hamilton's background, the firearms licensing system, school security, and the response of the emergency services. It made recommendations on tighter firearm controls, improved vetting of adults working with children, and better school security. Subsequent release of previously restricted documents confirmed that concerns about Hamilton's behavior around children had been raised with police and other authorities over many years, yet his firearms certificate was never revoked. The Snowdrop Campaign and the change in the law. In the weeks after the massacre, bereaved parents and local people launched the Snowdrop Petition, named after the only flower in bloom that March morning. It gathered more than 700,000 signatures calling for a ban on private handgun ownership. The conservative government under John Major passed the Firearms Amendment Act 1997, prohibiting most handguns. After the May 1997 general election, the incoming Labor government under Tony Blair extended the ban to include .22 caliber handguns as well. A government buyback scheme compensated licensed owners who surrendered weapons. Private ownership of almost all handguns was effectively ended in Great Britain. The UK has not experienced another school shooting of this kind. Legacy and remembrance. A memorial garden was opened at Dunblane Cemetery in 1998. The Dunblane Center, built with donations from around the world, opened later as a community facility whose windows carry etched tributes to the victims. Survivors, bereaved families, and the wider community have generally preferred quiet, private remembrance. Many have spoken of the need both to honor the children and their teacher and to ensure the lessons of Dunblane are not forgotten, particularly the importance of rigorous firearms licensing and the protection of children. 30 years on, the names of the 16 children and Gwen Mayer are still spoken with care in Dunblane. The town rebuilt its daily life, but the morning of 13 March 1996 remains a permanent marker in British history, a moment when the vulnerability of the youngest members of society forced a fundamental change in the law, and when a community's grief helped reshape the country's approach to gun ownership. In the gymnasium that no longer stands, 16 children and their teacher were killed in a few minutes of calculated violence. From that loss came legislation that made Britain one of the safest countries in the world in terms of gun crime. The children of Dunblane Primary School, Primary 1 class of 1995 to 96, are remembered not only for how they died, but for the change their deaths compelled a nation to make.